Okay, so we're going to start with a little video at the end of every trip. Most teams go into Freetown and spend a little bit of time in Freetown. Some of them go to the beach and the market and just have a, one day at the very end of the trip. So we're going to see this video.
Okay.
There we go.
Linda, we can't hear the sound. Are we supposed to be hearing sound?
Yeah, hold on just a minute. Let's give this a shot. Better?
Welcome to Freetown. My name is Lansana Mansare, commonly called Bami Boy. I am a filmmaker. I am based in Freetown. I run a media collective called the Freetown Media Center. Freetown is my home.
The capital and largest city of Sierra Leone, Freetown, is a major port city along the coastline of the Atlantic Ocean. Around 1 million people call this city home.
In Freetown, you find different people from more than 12 ethnic groups that we have all living in this space. We have the Mendis living here, we have the Sosos, we have the Timinis, we have the Limbas, we have Fullers. We all live in one piece. That is the beauty in Freetown, and that is why we love Freetown.
The area around Freetown was settled in 1787 by freed slaves. It became a melting pot for liberated African and Caribbean settlers. The cotton tree in the city center reflects Freetown's unique history.
After the abolition of slavery, freed slaves from the Nova Scotia settled here, what we now know as Freetown, and that cotton tree right there was the place where they had their services. The preachers do preach under that cotton tree, and they had their meetings. And the first Thanksgiving service that was held right under there. So the cotton tree means a lot to Freetonians, and you can't talk about Freetown without mentioning the cotton tree.
Freetown is Sierra Leone's financial hub. The city's economy revolves largely around its natural harbor, Deepwater Quay, the biggest in Africa. Lansana Mansare used to fish for a living, earning him the nickname Barmy Boy. Barmy is local slang for tilapia.
As you know, Freetown is by the Atlantic Ocean. We have a really long coastline, beautiful coastline. So I grew up in a community like many other families. Fishing was like a livelihood for me and for my family also.
Since making the switch to a filmmaking career, Lansana Mansare's new workplace looks very different. One of his documentaries, a film about the Ebola outbreak in Sierra Leone, was nominated for an Emmy Award in 2019. It was the first ever West African film to receive this accolade.
Here is my studio. I work from here. I spend a lot of time here working. From morning sometimes to night, I'm just editing, films and, recording sound also. So I spend a lot of time in here.
Lansana Mansare is certain he will never run out of stories in a city like Freetown.
Hope you enjoy watching Freetown, the journey through Freetown. This is the land that we love. This is my home. Thank you for watching. Much love from Freetown.
So as you can see, Freetown has some beautiful beaches. And most of the teams, the very last day, they'll travel from Bow City into Freetown and spend the night at a hotel. They'll go to the beach and then go to the market. Sometimes have a sort of Western meal at one of the local restaurants before they have to catch a plane home. Freetown has some of the most beautiful beaches along the Atlantic coast. They're beautiful white sand beaches. And unfortunately, most missioners don't get a lot of time to spend there, but it really is a joy to be able to take just a little bit of downtime at the end of a mission trip to be able to stay in Freetown. Okay, so today at the wrap up of our sort of virtual mission to Sierra Leone is the team returns home. And part of our interaction with travel teams is to talk to them about how to stay engaged with the programs. So you go on a 2-week trip and you do some projects and you come home, but that's not the end of the journey. Part of that journey is how to remain engaged with the program. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So one of the ways that you can remain engaged with the programs is to help with fundraising. This is Sierra Leone currency called, surprisingly, the Leone. Now it looks like that's an awful lot of money because certainly if that was dollars, we would be rolling in the dough. But the current exchange rate is about 10,000 Sierra Leone leones to $1. So this green bill right here is $1, and this one is 50 cents, and this one is 20 cents. So as you can see, and this is the 10,000 leone bill is the largest bill they have in their currency. So, you know, to carry around $50 is quite a stack of money. So fundraising for some of our programs, obviously the prenatal program, it costs about $35 to provide prenatal care and delivery for one mother through Mercy Hospital's programs.
Well, that's what we gave for Mother's Day.
The nutrition program, it costs approximately $130 to provide 1 year's supply of nutritional supplements for one child in the nutrition program. The reintegration program, it costs approximately $250 to provide the funds to reintegrate one child from the street back into a family. And the education program, $500 provides educational expenses, school uniforms, and supplies for 10 children for one school year. So how you can participate in this, you can set a goal for yourself. Using some of those numbers, like I'd love to raise enough money to provide for 10 deliveries at Mercy Hospital. Set a goal and then craft a story. How would you reach out to people? If you want to create a fundraiser and you need pictures and videos, HCW has lots of those that you could reach out and ask for in order to put together a fundraiser. And then who would you ask and how? Individuals and groups, using mail or email, one-on-one for events. We've had a lot of people who have raised funds doing dining evenings, or one group had a hot soup fundraiser where they all made different pots of soup. There's also online fundraising where you can create a campaign through the HCW website and you put your name on it and share it through social media. I can actually change my here and show that to you. Maybe. Here we are. So through our website, so if you go to donate.helpingchildrenworldwide.org, you can actually scroll down here and create a fundraiser of your own for Helping Children Worldwide. And you can background, name it.
We shouldn't have watched.
And you put in a description of your fundraiser, and then you can set a goal for yourself. You can share it through Facebook, through email, all kinds of different social media. Most of our travel teams raise their funds this way. And that's the way those are some ways that you can keep engaged with the programs through fundraising. Now, there are other ways you can engage with the programs. I'm sure that some of you are probably sponsors and sponsor children through the Sponsor a Child program. So the Sponsor a Child program allows for individual donors or donor families to connect with a particular child in the Child Reintegration Center program. That's a one-on-one relationship between the child in the program and their sponsor or sponsor family. This is a great way to make a connection with one of the individuals in the program. You get updates on the child's progress as well as photos as the child grows, and you are able to exchange letters. It takes a while, but letters do go back and forth through our Sponsor a Child program. Now, sponsorship costs $25 a month or $300 a year. Now, that money does not go directly to the individual sponsored child. That money goes into a fund, a pot, which then is used to provide health care. All the children in the program get free health care through Mercy Hospital. It provides for educational expenses. Primary school is free from the government. However, there are different school fees that are required in order for a child to go to school. Even though the education is free, it's not really free to go to school. They have seat fees and teacher fees, activity fees, all of these fees that must be paid in order for the child to attend, as well as the children have to provide their own school supplies, which the CRC programs provide for them. and they must have a school uniform and shoes. So the CRC provides those as well. As a part of the CRC's programs, the parents also qualify for training and workshops, training in parenting classes and attachment theory. And some of the most vulnerable families qualify for the microfinance program, where they can learn budgeting, household income expense, how to open a savings account, as well as putting together a small business proposal. And for those parents who complete the program, the classes, they qualify to get a small microfinance loan to open their own business. These funds also cover supplemental tutoring and classes. Those are offered to children in the years when they are taking standardized exams. Every child, in order to pass from 5th grade on to 6th grade, has to pass a national exam. And so tutoring and extra classes are provided for students who are in that year so that they can prepare for those exams. Exams are also required at the end of 8th grade, as well as the end of 12th grade. The exam that students take at the end of 12th grade determine whether or not they will qualify for a place at university. All the students in the CRC program who complete 12th grade can apply for something called a Promise Scholarship. Now, if they qualify for a university place, they can receive a scholarship in order to go to college. If they don't qualify for a university place, they can still apply for a Promise Scholarship to go to a vocational or trade school. And we'll see some of the children who have done that in just a few minutes. So as a sponsor, you will be helping to end poverty in a child who may not have any other options, restoring hope to families. You get to build a one-on-one relationship with that child, knowledge that you are strengthening a family and allowing them to stay together. And for those people who choose to travel on a mission team, you would get the opportunity to engage directly on a home visit with your sponsor's child and that child's family. So this is our executive director, Melody, and her sponsored child and her sponsored child's family. You get to go out usually on a Sunday afternoon after church, and church can sometimes be 4 hours long. So I don't expect any of you to ever complain about Jason's sermon length ever again. So after church and you have lunch, then the sponsor child team will make arrangements for you to go out and meet your sponsored child and visit them and their family at their home. It gives you the opportunity to meet their parents, to see where they live, to take some small gifts to them, and to interact with them in their own setting rather than in an institutional setting. You get to actually see their families and how they live, and to make long-lasting bonds. Kristen has been a sponsor for many, many years, and she has traveled over 3 times and has met and maintained this relationship with Raymond, who is her sponsor child. So the CRC provides this access to good quality education and healthcare. It supports healthy life choices by allowing students to connect with counselors at the CRC who can give them career advice. It helps to assist families in becoming more skilled in order to support their children, which we hope will help them to no longer rely on support in the future. Now, presently, the CRC supports about 600 of the most vulnerable children. That number has just recently gone down because we had a large number of college graduates this year. So our number reduced from 600 just recently because of those college graduations. And all of those students who either graduated from college or vocational school now have the skills in order to get a job in a very difficult economy. Those 600 vulnerable children represent approximately 550 families and caregivers. Not all families are a mother or father as the head of the household. Sometimes it's a grandparent, an auntie or an uncle, or a foster parent who will be the head of the household and the caregiver. So what is the actual impact of sponsoring a child? These are some of our success stories. So Dr. Aruna Stevens, who was one of the original boys taken in off the street when the CRC opened in 2000, is now the senior medical doctor at Mercy Hospital. He qualified for medical school in 2008 and received a Promise Scholarship to put him through medical school. Amara Fode, who was also a sponsored child, is now a senior welder. He's one of the students who went to trade school, and he now owns his own welding shop. Abdullah Smaila, who was also one of the original children in 2000 in the program, is now a civil engineer and is working on a 4-country government project to provide shared power. Electricity is not available all the time or everywhere in the country. And so this project that Abdullah is working on right now is sponsored by the government and is to help provide 24-hour power across 4 different countries, which is quite an amazing project for such a difficult area and for a young boy who grew up in an orphanage. Albert Lawanda is now a public health specialist. Albert got married 2 years ago, and he is working for the government on infectious diseases. Counselor Rosa Safa, she recently qualified as a social worker and a counselor, and she is currently working at the CRC and works with some of the traumatized children in counseling to help them deal with some of the situations that they have seen. This is our second doctor. So we've actually had 2 of the CRC children who were sponsored, who have graduated from medical school. Yusuf Tejan had the distinction in 2007 when he took his high school graduation and university qualifying exam to have scored the highest mark in the entire country of Sierra Leone. And he qualified for medical school, and he is now the senior medical officer in Banff district, which is one of the 13 districts in Sierra Leone. It's further south in the country than where Bo is. And he has been posted there now for the past 2 years. And this is Alfreda Humper. And I'm going to let Alfreda tell her own story of the impact of Sponsor a Child on her.
I am Afreda. I came from an extremely poor family who could not afford to send me to school. Even though getting educated was one of the main goals, I am proud to say I am now a senior teacher in a country where 57% of people are illiterate. My headmaster says I am the most committed teacher and that I am very passionate about seeing many children educated, about increasing the number of people that can read and write, and about increasing the quality performance. But wait a minute, where did this come from? Well, it all started 20 years ago when generous donors like you decided to plant a set of seed of real transformation. Your faithful generosity over those 20 years, the CRC was able to restore my dream as they gave me education, healthcare, food, and spiritual development. Today, I am one of those fruits from the seed we planted years ago, and many people continue to get fed from these fruits. Though your support, I am able to help others now, and I have my own family too. You are a blessing to my life.
So that's kind of the impact that Sponsor a Child has on the children in the CRC program. I know that Galilee usually does their big Sponsor a Child push at the holiday season. Mickey Stalcup works directly with the Sponsor a Child coordinator at HCW, Kathleen Karen, to pull together the unsponsored children or the children who are currently sponsored by Galilee members. And then Mickey works tirelessly to get as many children sponsored as she possibly can. And that's such a blessing for the Sponsor a Child program. Now there are, there we go. There are other engagement opportunities that you can participate in. And I'm just going to briefly share what those are. So first off, I'm sure that you're all sick of seeing little faces in squares after this last year of everyone being only online and not being able to be together. But Zoom is one of the great ways that we are able to communicate back and forth across the ocean, since we can't be there all the time. Even before COVID, we can't be in Sierra Leone all the time. And so Zoom is one way that we do help to connect people here with the programs there. So we currently have a group of medical professionals who connect to the medical professionals at Mercy Hospital twice a month. It's every other Thursday. And they help, they talk back and forth, they share ideas, they discuss issues that Mercy Hospital has, some of the needs they have and how they might be able to work with those. So if you are or you know of a medical professional who might be interested in doing that, that's one way that we connect people here with our staff there in a supportive role. We have also used that same platform, not on a regular basis, but when there are special needs, for connecting our social workers. So social workers and counselors here in the United States can connect to the social workers and counselors who are the case managers at the CRC and help them with issues they may be having. We've used it to connect teachers here in the United States. Every summer for the past several years, we have done something called the Teacher Learning Collaborative. That's been a project that has been run by one particular teacher, but in connection with other educators here in the US. Now, the first couple of years, she and other teachers went over and met with Sierra Leonean teachers and had this great exchange of ideas. How do you teach in a low resource environment? How do you manage a classroom when the average classroom in a primary school in Sierra Leone has 80 children in it to every single teacher? How do you deal with discipline problems and lack of resources? And that exchange of ideas was wonderful. But then this year happened, and our teachers weren't able to go over. So one thing that we did was we had this group of teachers who connected with the education coordinator at the CRC and worked directly with her on putting together the curriculum that those teachers had been working on for the previous 2 summers. And so Zoom became one of our best friends this year. And so if you know a teacher or other educators who might be interested in maybe doing some of that, we always are looking for people who can jump into those types of things. Also, IT specialists, and even some other specialties. Every once in a while, there are things like construction work, facilities management, administrative work that we always need help with. Then there are events. If you say, well, I don't really have much of a, specialty in any of those areas, but I still would like to be involved. You can always participate in one of the events that are run throughout the year. Now, this particular one is called Go for Bo. This is an event that one of our partner churches, Ebenezer United Methodist Church, that's down in Stafford, has every September. And it's a fun run that they do. It's not September, sorry, it's October. The second weekend in October is the weekend of Go for Bo. And so if you or your family would like to go and do a fun run or participate in that, you can always find the events highlighted in our newsletters. Let me go back to that one, events. Maybe you're not a runner. I certainly am not. Or you might be a golfer. HCW has a golf tournament every September. It's always the Monday after Labor Day. And you might want to participate in that, maybe field a team, or maybe volunteer at one of the events. We're always looking for volunteers to help at the golf tournament or some of our holiday events. We often have events that occur around the holidays that we're looking for volunteers to help with. And again, those events can be found in our newsletter as upcoming events. And maybe you would like to try to go and travel on a team. This is Dr. Gary Gilkison, and he tries to go over every year and do some work at Mercy Hospital. He will be going this year in October. He was supposed to go last summer, but that one got put away. So he'll be going over this October. And you don't have to have medical expertise. This is the Teacher Learning Collaborative I was talking about, and this is Sharon Gardner, and she is the teacher educator who has been coordinating that project every summer. There's also construction work. And we try not to do too much of that work ourselves, but to work with locals. So as you can see, there are local Sierra Leoneans that our team is working with. So we try not to go over and do all of the construction work just ourselves, but to get the locals to hire locals so that we are supporting their economy and not taking work away from them. There's always groups who go over and do not just construction work, but administrative work, as well as occupational therapists who go over. We have nutritionists who travel, lots of different specialties. And even if you don't have a particular specialty, but you're interested in traveling, you can always contact us and we can see what sorts of projects we might be able to utilize you on. Right. I think that's all the engagement opportunities. I think Linda went to close her windows because there was a storm coming through.
It's done.
Okay.
Linda and I are just about parallel. I'm in Ashburn and she's south of Leesburg. And so I think that I just looked at the radar and I sent her a chat and said, thank you for the warning because it's coming straight to my house next after it finishes up at hers. So
It seems to have gotten sunnier again.
Okay, so now I would like to open it up to you if you have any questions for me about anything we've talked about. And it doesn't have to be about, something I've talked about today. It could be something we've talked about on a previous evening.
Could you tell us more about the economy in Sierra Leone? You said that it's a very tough economy, so I'm curious what kinds of jobs the individuals are going into after they graduate from these programs, and if they are getting employment over others who are less educated.
Certainly over less educated persons. It's approximately 65 to 70% of the population lives below the international poverty line. So it's a very split economy. There is very much the haves and the have-nots. And the way that you move between those two is to get an education. Most people who live outside of the city are subsistence farmers or petty traders. So they grow vegetables, they have chickens, so they gather eggs, and then they go to the market every day and they set up a little stall and they sell them. That is what most people do. Many of the educated jobs, it is often who you know and who you're connected to. So West African culture is very intertwined, and you're so-and-so's, auntie, best friend from the village. Oh yes, I know so-and-so from the village. And that's often how you get things done, is by who you're connected to. And that's also often how you find out where the jobs are. And so unfortunately especially for young men, so young men under the age of 30, the unemployment rate is about 65%. There are not a lot of just general unskilled jobs. So there's not, for our young people just starting out, you'd say, well, just get a minimum wage job and earn your way up. But there's not a lot of industry. There's not a lot of restaurants and sort of entry level areas that you can do that, especially in the unskilled area. And so you really have to have, one, a good education, and two, find those connections. And so as you saw in the slideshow, we do have a number of our graduates who got a good education, who are working either in the government sector, civil engineering, healthcare, social work, those kinds of areas, medicine, where they have gotten that education and have been able to get into good jobs.
Thank you.
I have two questions completely unrelated. One is there any sense of tourism in Freeport and with the beautiful beaches? And the other is, what's the COVID situation, and to what extent has the hospital helped with the vaccination process?
Mm-hmm. Both very good questions. So tourism was it was a big deal in Sierra Leone prior to the Civil War. So in the 1980s, tourism was an up-and-coming industry because they do have such beautiful beaches, and hotels were beginning to be built along the area in Lumley Beach, which is the very western part of Freetown. Unfortunately, during the Civil War, that all disappeared. And then as the government was trying to rebuild some of the infrastructure, tourism was just starting to come back in when the Ebola crisis hit. And so there wasn't quite enough impetus to keep it going, and saw a big drop off. Well, people were just not going into the country during that 2-year period from 2014 to 2016. Now, there are a few of those large, nice hotel resorts that are beginning to come back, and which actually does dovetail into your second question about COVID. Sierra Leone has not seen the numbers of COVID cases that some other areas of the world have. Now, we are not certain that that is a real accurate picture, because the government is controlling both testing and treatment. So Paul's question about, what has the role of Mercy Hospital been in COVID? Mercy Hospital is not allowed by the government, because it is not a government run facility, to either test, treat, or vaccinate COVID. That doesn't mean they haven't seen any COVID cases. It just means that anyone who comes in presenting with COVID symptoms is immediately isolated and sent to a government facility. The testing, the reason that we think that the numbers are far underreported is that the testing for COVID in Sierra Leone is not free. So most people it costs $80 to get a COVID test. And people who are living on $700 a year are not going to have $80 to pay for a COVID test. So most people are going untested, which is why we think probably the numbers are far underreported. So that's sort of the COVID situation. Now they do require a test for anyone coming into the country. And this is something that we've had to keep our eye on, because we're starting to look at sending our first team, will be going back this October, is that anyone who's going to travel has to have a COVID test before they leave the United States, even if you've been vaccinated. You have to have a negative test before you leave the United States. You have to pay for and have a test upon arrival in Sierra Leone. And then you're free to go on your way. If you're, for our team who will stay for 2 weeks and then turn around and come back, they will also have to have a test prior to leaving Sierra Leone. They would not be allowed to get on the plane until they show that they have a negative COVID test. So the government is kind of keeping a very strict control and, charging money for it.
Thank you.
Linda,
You're
is that the
welcome.
real reason you've decided to retire? When we talked about trying to restart when we would send a team to Costa Rica, and I started looking at the logistics of all of that, just travel and where the COVID tests are located, I'm going, nope. It was,
Yeah.
and we're much closer to home than you guys are with Sierra Leone, but all I'm seeing is someone missing that flight home because we didn't get the COVID test back in time. And I thought, oh my goodness. So yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah, it is a very big deal. I actually have sent, I don't know if any of you know, Mohammed Nabiu, who used to be the CRC director. He actually married our field director at the time, and they have come back to the United States. So Mohammed is working for Helping Children Worldwide now, and he has made 2 trips back to Sierra Leone, and I have had to deal with all of those logistics and told him that if he contracted COVID while he was there, I could not bring him home. He would be stuck there until it had run its course and he was clear again. Now he's Sierra Leonean and he has his whole family there, so he was not concerned about it. But certainly a missioner, for me to say, I can send you and I will make all the arrangements and we will pay for your test. But if it comes back positive, I can't bring you home. That's not really a comfortable thing to have to think about.
That's not the first bullet point in trying to recruit people to go to Sierra Leone.
No.
That would be mine. I don't know.
I think it makes sense. You come for the sights, you stay for the COVID.
Right, exactly. And you might get to go home. Who knows?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit, Linda or Yaz, about how, and certainly you might have to go back to like pre-pandemic times, because I think none of us really know how this is all going to flesh out in the next, let's say, year or so. But if I decided today that I was interested in joining a team to go to Costa Rica, what is the timeline, not Costa Rica, to Sierra Leone? Thank you, Stephanie. What is the timeline for what that would be? And can you kind of walk through kind of what that would look like for someone that was interested in doing that?
Absolutely. So we normally start putting our teams together approximately 6 months prior to departure. So at 6 months out, we would send bulletin announcements to our partner churches. And so you probably have seen, in the bulletin or in the church announcements, newsletter, whatever, upcoming trip to Sierra Leone. That usually is posted there about 6 months before a team travels. And then we gather up all of the applications and we start at that 5-month point meeting together. And so a team meets together 4 times, approximately every 5 weeks, starting 5 months before you leave. So like, as I said, we're starting to put together our October team. They had their first meeting in May. Applications were due in April in order to travel in October. And so they met once, their first meeting in May. We go through some of the training, the medical, here's all that you need to know medically. What shots do you need? What medications do you need? What sorts of diseases do I need to watch out for? We do a full medical briefing. We talk about fundraising. So each person who would like to travel on a team needs to fundraise $3,200, which covers everything from airline tickets, visas, everything. You would still have to have your own passport, and it doesn't cover your anti-malarial medication. So shots and medications, you would be, those are so individualized. Those you would take care of yourself, but it does cover all the administrative fees, airline tickets, all your in-country expenses, transportation, hotels, lodging, meals, everything except for if you want to buy some souvenirs. From the time you leave Dulles Airport until the time you leave Freetown to come home. And so we go through all of that during the team meetings. We also do some team building activities. And so for this October team, they will have their next team meeting towards the end of June. They'll have one meeting at the beginning of August and then one in mid-September. And then that team is going to be traveling October 16th till the 30th, which is a standard project team. A standard project team is approximately 15 days, usually leaving on a Saturday and returning 2 weeks later on a Saturday. We do have some shorter teams, usually our December team, which is targeted toward college students who go over as a learning opportunity to learn about the country, to learn about the people, to experience some of the needs in the country, and then they'll do a small project. So that picture of the construction group, that was our last college team, a group of college students with a couple of responsible adults thrown in. And they go over and they usually will do one small project, work on a construction project, do some painting, or run a vacation Bible school with some of the CRC college students. So being like the support, we don't want to run it. We want to be the support for the Sierra Leoneans who are running it and doing that work. So we would invite some of the CRC college students, those promised scholars who are on scholarship to university or trade school, to come in and do the actual running of the Vacation Bible School with the team as their support. Okay, you go and get the snack and you set up the craft over here, and that would be their role in that. We also will occasionally have development teams, which are potential partner churches or fairly new partner churches who have not ever had a mission or travel on a team, who go over just to learn about the programs. It's often the pastors from the church or pastors from potential partner churches, or their outreach, just looking at Rebecca over there, their outreach coordinators or serve directors who go over and see what the programs are and experience, what is being done actually on the ground, so they can bring that home to share with their home church. Any other questions? Oh, good. I'm glad I could answer everything. I really appreciate all your time across these last 4 weeks. This has actually been our very first virtual mission experience. And so you all were a great group for me to practice on. So thank you all very much.
And Linda, thank you. When I reached out to Linda, I was like, do you think we can do this? And she's like, oh, give me a couple weeks. And so She was fantastic. I didn't have to do anything with this, which is always lovely from the serve director's desk to not have to coordinate it and just learn like everybody else did. So that was a real joy to me with all this, and I really just appreciate everything that you all have done to let us learn and experience from the videos that I know that Nabs, he recorded a lot of those when he was over there just a little bit ago, and so please pass on our thanks to him as well, and to everybody that was involved. This was, I think, a really worthwhile experience, and I know that we're competing with the choir on Wednesday nights, Linda, which I didn't know that they were going to continue to meet, and then they started meeting outside and in person. Dang the choir. No, just kidding. But we have a couple of them that have gone to that in person, but they are watching it once I upload it to YouTube. So certainly appreciate you doing that as well, and recording and allowing them to participate even though they can't be here live. So thank you.
Well, thank you too. So it was great to meet you all, and I hope that you will stay engaged with the programs in one way or another.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.